Then they came to Jericho. As Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called to the blind man, "Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you." Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go," said Jesus. "Your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road.
Praise be Jesus Christ. Can you believe that we are celebrating the 30th Sunday in Ordinary Time? In today's gospel passage, we hear how Jesus cures the blind beggar Bartimaeus. But really, the gospel passage is about the spiritually handicapped, not the visually impaired. This gospel speaks a hard word. Jesus cures not just the physical sight of the blind Bartimaeus, but the blindness that we all suffer from failing to see with our eyes of faith. When we lose power in our homes, no matter how strong our eyesight might be, we cannot see in the dark. Normally, we need flashlights or candles to help us to see when the lights go dark. But when the batteries are dead, or the candles that we thought we had are nowhere to be found, imagine what it'd be like to be permanently blind. Now try for a moment, inside out, the agonizing cry of the blind beggar Bartimaeus. "Jesus of Nazareth, I want to see." Yes, physical sight is very important, but seeing with the eyes of faith are more important because faith helps us to make sense of the reality lying just below the surface of things. That world of meaning and purpose where religion is at home, where sight is really insight and wisdom, where vision is not just something in the eye of the beholder, but a conviction in the heart of the believer. What do you see of this inner world of sensitivities beyond our senses? So many of us walk through life with our eyes wide open, yet understand little of its meaning because we are inwardly blind. The physically blind are aware of their handicap. The spiritually blind usually are not. The times in which we live demand a clear inner vision. Without such a vision to enlighten and sustain us, we are in danger of succumbing to the dark, terrifying forces of fear and despair within and around us. Fear of failure, fear of loss of faith and moral principles and religious practices, fear of getting shot while driving on the expressway, fear of not being able to provide for our families, and our fears are endless. In the prophetic words of Isaiah, we are like those without eyes, groping for light in our existential darkness, searching blindly for meaning, for justice, for truth, amid the falsehood and lies all around us. The blind Bartimaeus cried out from the dark night of his own soul and spirit, "Jesus, have mercy on me." And Jesus turned to him and said, "What do you want me to do for you? Let me receive my sight. I want to be able to see." When was the last time you asked Jesus for sight or for insight? It would mean having to admit that we do not really see things clearly. We would have to admit that we do not know all that there is to know about God, religion, about ourselves, and one another. It would mean that we would have to be open to dealing with the possibility that God might answer our prayer. If we should really investigate our behavior and our beliefs, we might see that some of our rules need to be rewritten. Some of our roles need to be rearranged. Some rites and rituals might need to be reworked. Some attitudes need to be reformed, and some of our convictions would need to be renewed. That's a very tall order, wanting to see things as they really are or as God intends them to be, not as we would have them. There is no doubt that God can manage such a request for genuine spiritual insight, but can we? We want to see with the eyes of faith, but we are afraid of the consequences. Take courage, said the friends of Bartimaeus, the blind man, because the blind man stood on the threshold of no return. Don't lose heart. Jesus is calling you. Don't lose heart. Jesus is calling all of us. We do not need to be afraid as we say, Lord, I want to see. Jesus performed 2 miracles for Bartimaeus. He restored the sight to his eyes, long physically blinded, and he gave insight to a heart that longed to see. A newly liberated Bartimaeus perceived that there was even more to be seen. So he followed Jesus, intrigued by the startling words, "It is your faith that has made you whole." As the faith of Bartimaeus gave rise to the miracles, so too our own faith will work wonders for us. Faith means believing that God will lead the blind black to clarity from the far corners of confusion. With God, all things are possible. Faith means believing Jesus as the Christ, our high priest, who intercedes before God the Father on our behalf as our one, only high priest, as flesh of our flesh, as one of us, and yet one beyond us, as a child of God, as God of God. Jesus, I want to see. Indeed, we do want to see what all this means for us and what this requires of us. Pope Francis is calling the church, which is all of us, to remember that we are on a journey. Together, we are on a pilgrimage. God is with us, and he is walking with us as we proclaim the kingdom of God, announcing that the reign of God is here, and calling everyone, excluding no one, to have faith in him who died and rose from the dead. Today's gospel calls for a faith strong enough to make miracles happen and for the courage and determination to live with the miracle once it has occurred. Bartimaeus received his physical sight and followed Jesus. His friends surely thought that he was crazy. There was so much that he could do now, that he could finally see. Why was he running after that Nazarene, throwing his life away, wasting his miracle? But Bartimaeus followed Jesus precisely because he could now see, at last with the eyes of faith, far more than the eye could see. How ironic. The blind in a flash sees clearly that which the enlightened somehow fail to see. Christianity is accustomed to paradox. Those who are blind see. Those who are lame walk. Those who relinquish their lives find life, while those who cling to what they cherish most will feel it slip sliding away. Amazing grace. How can this be? I once was lost, but now am fine. Was blind, but now I see.
Cudowna Boża łasko. z grzechów mnie zgubiony, nędzny byłem ja, lecz teraz cieszę się. Ta łaska wlała Boży strach w kamienne serce me i wtedy zobaczyłem w łzach, żem na przepaści dnie, lecz łaska podźwignęła mnie i naprzód wiedzie wciąż przez ciemne i burzliwe dnie, tam gdzie ojcowski dom. O Boże, dzięki, dzięki Ci za cudną łaskę Twą. Do nóg Twych padam w kornej czci. Niebiosa chwałą brzmią. Do nóg Twych padam w kornej